sells for 10,000. You come 2 weeks later and it's jumped to 40,000. So it's not just an incremental amount, it's actually a doubling or sometimes a tripling of the prices.
I think right now they said a liter of fuel in Nigeria is like 450 a liter.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
450 a liter is close to, what was it? I mean, it doesn't sound much that I'm missing, but that's
but if you consider the minimum wage in Nigeria and the economic situation of people, which is why I also say that whatever happens in February with the elections, which I think the presidential elections will be, I think February 25, if I'm not sure.
Should be 25th, right?
Yeah. So is that there's a lot of hope, a lot of expectation, not hope, a lot of expectation. People expect a kind of laying to rest of the Buhari ghost, this thing that Buhari has represented. And what Buhari has represented also is this insecurity, that because of Buhari's parochialism, because of his narrow-mindedness, the IPOB movement received a momentum. People felt that this man did not regard the Southeast, did not regard Igbo land as part of Nigeria, did not regard actually the rest of Nigeria outside of his small Katsina enclave as really important as part of Nigeria. And so he's allowed Fulani herdsmen to operate with their absolute impunity in different parts of the north, in different parts of the southwest, in the southeast, and so on, to morph into grabbers of land, rapers of women, and also ultimately kidnappers of people. So Buhari has been a disaster in every way, and the insecurity that you now have in the southeast, where a bunch of groups now arose in the kind of space created by IPOB and his rhetoric, and so you find now an amorphous group that is known as unknown government. Nobody knows. They have no fidelity, no fealty to any particular ideology. They just exploit an environment that is ripe for criminality and for violence. And they've made life ungovernable and unlivable in different parts of the Southeast, as well as different parts of Nigeria. So there's a whole lot resting on these elections. My fear is that the elections are going to come. There'll be, if say P2B wins, there'll be great hurrah. There'll be a huge sense of expectation about the immediacy of change in the country. And it is possible that there'll be that kind of change if Obi allows himself to be large, right? If he allows himself to recognize how little he can change, and then invite people who are experts in different fields to come and help him. That's one. I also think that there's a possibility of great change if Obi enlists the emotional support in a real way of Nigerians in the diaspora. And there are lots of Nigerians who have the resources to invest in Nigeria if they see that there is a different kind of leadership. And if he can go to the countries like the United States, look at all the money that America has put in Ukraine. America should actually be persuaded to invest that kind of resources in Nigeria, just in grants. The European Union to invest massively in Nigeria, to forgive the debt that Buhari and the other presidents before him had reaccumulated after the debt renegotiations of the Obasanjo years. If the international community would see serious leadership in Nigeria and invest, just pouring money, because if Nigeria fails, oh my gosh, much of Africa will be in absolute disarray. Absolute disarray. So I think that it will be in the geopolitical interests of the European Union, of the United States, of African countries itself, of Asian countries, to see, and of Nigerians in the diaspora, as well as Nigerians at home, because some Nigerians at home also have the means. So you have to really harness and husband the human resources of the country, the best minds, attract fiscal investments and so on, to work on power, right? Because if Nigeria has better energy sector, better power production, the industrial capacity of the country is going to take off, right? Because Nigerians are very ingenious, productive, enterprising people. They have simply been sabotaged again and again by the kind of mediocrity that has run their affairs. So that's my last word.
Yeah. I mean, that's 100% right. For me, it's just the uncertainty of the. I mean, that part. You're right. Overpromised. You come in 1 year's time. We're talking of you worse than Soludo is now, I guess. But you're a magician. But another thing is like what we've always said. Believe in an interim government. Why? One of the reasons that one doesn't stress is one of the fears of the elections as well is that it's at a very critical juncture. Do I think, knowing Nigeria, that if they rig the elections or something like that happens, there's going to be mass protests? No, not really. 4 months ago, I was being like, yeah, it's going to be, people will not. Or 4 months later, I just see all the same signs, all the same looks, all the same deja vu. So, but that being said, you never take anything for granted. You'd rather, there's a basketball analogy. I haven't been using it for a while. There's a sport analogy, generally. Basketball, football, and soccer in America, but football. They say you have to find a good sport to make a change in terms of, you have to know. You were frozen for a minute. You have to repeat the football analogy. Oh, okay, so there's a football analogy. Like you have to know a good sport to make a change. I'm making a change in terms of, by the time it's undefeated or in everybody or whatever, people have to move. You move people. It's better to move somebody 1 year too early than 1 year too late. When we say, hey, an international government, it's better to do this earlier because it's 70 years too late already. Absolutely. And let the change come on itself. If the change of that magnitude, if it turns into a revolution, great. We're not talking of just, it's better to have a revolutionary political structure that tries to freeze Nigeria than have just a revolution. A revolution could turn out well. I'm not calling for one, but could turn out well. That's what Shore does. Could turn out well. It's possible. But when you roll the dice on a revolution, you really don't know where it's going to end up. The outcome is any guide. Those things end up in wildly. When people look back at the revolution and they're like, man, they start having nostalgia for the evil they had before, and then people end up playing all these devil's games or what was better or what. And I could point to so many current countries that have that situation now, whether it's North Korea, whether it's Iran, so many of them that, and sometimes